Hello everyone, my name is Guth, and in this video I'm going to go over the recent Q&A Iron Mace released and give you all my thoughts on where the future of the game is heading. Now this Q&A is about 25 questions long and is split into two sections. The first section is questions commonly asked inside of the Dark and Darker Discord. Quick side note, if you are not in that Discord, I'll place a link in the description. This is by far the quickest way to keep up to date with Dark and Darker. Now the second section is a list of questions compiled by content creator So Bad Strange. This section has the juicy questions in my opinion, so big thanks to So Bad Strange for making that happen. Question number 1, when will you add PayPal as a payment method? SDF does confirm they're working on it and it is going to be happening soon. Number 2, will you add a friends list in the game? He says friends list feature is required. They were initially trying to use the Steam's friends list feature, so they didn't prioritize using it, but obviously because of the DMCA, it is not listed on Steam currently, so we can't use the Steam friends list feature. Number 3, what will the quest system look like? Now this is a great question. They say satisfying the needs of each merchant and traveler will allow you to become more intimate with them. Now the intimate portion of that reminds me of a rep system kind of like Tarkov has. That would be kind of cool. Number 4, are any kind of permanent season rewards planned? He says, of course they have ideas for it, but they're not going to reveal anything now. I'm thinking maybe some like titles or something for top placements on the different categories for the leaderboards would be really cool to see. Number 5, will additional solo maps be added in the future? He says, yes, since solo dungeons are now an established piece of content, they plan to provide more diverse dungeons and adventures. That's really cool because the solo experience is a lot of fun in this game. What kind of playstyle is expected of the druid? He says, first, druids will be able to transform into animals. That's sick. That's so sick. And they will have different abilities accordingly. Beginnings are always typical. I don't know what that last part means. I'm also really curious what animals the druids are going to be able to transform into and how many they're going to be able to do, especially seeing how the bard is. I think the bard has 4 separate instruments. Like, imagine a druid where you get 4 separate animals that you can transform into. That's crazy. Number 7, is a duo map planned? He says there are no plans for that right now. I was watching Lindstrom on Twitch the other day and he explained this pretty perfectly. Basically, for Iron Mace to be able to balance all characters for solo and trio is pretty doable, but to balance them for solo, duo, and trio play makes things much more difficult. And honestly, it could be good for the balance and meta in the long term. Number 8, are we ever going to get a personal player stats tab? He says, yes, it's information that he personally really wants to check when he's playing, but the priority is a bit low on their pipeline. Number 9, can we expect additional inventory stash space? He says, this is a very important part of the game. He's not going to say anything yet, but from various angles, they have many concerns. I'm imagining this is probably going to be something that gets increased through the questing system. Number 10, when will it be possible to gift the game to a friend? They've received many requests for this feature. Let's try. Number 11, will you be making it easier to get blue shards? I feel like it takes a really long time to get them. He says, well, I intend to keep an eye on it a bit longer. I do kind of agree it takes a bit to get to the blue shards, but it really depends on the price that they're actually going to charge for things. I think right now it's a little bit low, but it's not in a terrible spot. Number 12, and this is a big one, will the game come back to Steam anytime soon? He says, that's our hope, but it's for Steam to decide. We do respect their decisions and understand their concerns about things that surround Iron Mace as a company. Number 13, are any more events planned in the future? He says nothing specific has been decided on yet, but they are interested in various attempts. I'm pretty excited about the idea of events. I think events in Escape from Tarkov are really important to the community, and if Iron Mace can kind of tap into that niche, it'd be really cool to see. Number 14, what kind of cosmetics are planned for the future? He says they're constantly looking for things that players will be happy with, and they're currently testing this in various ways. I don't know if it's just me, but I would love to see a dwarf race cosmetic skin pop up. Like shorter than the rest, harder to get headshots, but harder to get hit in the head. I think it would be play out really well. Number 15, and this is one I have been looking for as a Ranger main. When can we expect to see a quiver system? Currently in development. Wow, chef's kiss. Number 16, and this is the last of the Discord questions. How do you feel about the current state of the game? SDF says the game is still in a state where only the core part of the first-person extraction dungeon crawler is implemented. This game needs more systems and more content to keep the season healthy and worth replaying. However, what I am interested in at this point is to defend vulnerabilities as much as possible and build a system to defend the core as effectively as possible. It is not possible to prevent them 100%, but we are continuing to think about minimizing them in various ways. For that purpose, we will gradually introduce all existing methods. Now that answer to me it's just incredible. Coming from an Escape from Tarkov player where cheating honestly has ruined the game for me, as many others it has as well, for them to take the time now while the game is in such an early state, such a core game, and trying to fix it now before adding more to it, I think is the most strategic way to go about this. The problem that faces these games, and I'm sure many of you have already seen this, is the buying of gold, the RMT, the real money trading. You can already see it spammed in the trading hall, and this is only going to progressively get worse. This is what drives cheating in these types of games, and you can see it distinctly with Tarkov. Being able to put systems in place now while the game is still in early development, still at its core, I think is critical to minimizing the effect of RMT on this game. Now this is section 2, and these are the questions that were compiled by So Bad Strange. Number 1, the meta from prior playtest was to make sort of a level 5 mule character that would act as a second bank for our mains. Has there been any talk about getting backpacks or chests to store things in our stash, or possibly more stash tabs? This question seemed to already be answered in the questions above, but SDF does says we have many ideas and thoughts about the stash space, but we won't choose one easily until we accumulate enough data. By data, I can imagine they are looking at things like stash usage of averages across all players to determine potential sizes worth expanding to. Honestly though, take what I say with a grain of salt, as I'm not a game dev. Number 2, the first examples of crafting and mining have now been included in the game. We have also seen maggots, moldy bread, and skulls. Are these newer items for crafting or questing? SDF does say that's right, for crafting and for questing. They're prepping for it. 3, can you chat about your thoughts on the quest system? Will we see really long and interesting quest chains like Escape from Tarkov that could take a month to finish? SDF says our next content development target is quests. If possible, we want to be a collection of interesting challenges rather than simple repetition. This is another winning answer for me because honestly, Escape from Tarkov's quests they're buns. I hate them. They're not fun. They're so repetitive. Every wipe, it's the same thing, and I can't stand it. I really hope they have a way to change that system and maybe come up with something of their own. I definitely think that there is a lot of improvement that can be done with the Escape from Tarkov style questing. Number 4, is there any future development plans on the lore end for who these characters are individually, to extend the knowledge of the universe, setting they could be fighting in, and or what brings them to the dungeons specifically? And if so, will we be getting background content for such lore? SDF confirms that they have been working on stories related to lore for a long time already. That's awesome, I'm a lore nerd. The writing work related to this has been sufficiently advanced and has taken concrete shape. We are thinking about how to express it naturally in the game. It's really cool that they already have their lore sorted and they're basically just trying to put it in the game in a way that makes sense. Like, hats off for that. Number 5, what were your main sources of inspiration for the enemies? What are some of the challenges you faced in creating new monsters? What can we expect to see in terms of new monsters in future updates? SDF says, our monsters are meant to be made with familiar things that exist in traditional dungeons, and there, what I specifically want is for the monster to be something that's dangerous enough and a solution exists. Also, while the monsters are simple enough to respond in a one-on-one situation, it was designed with the expectation that various types of monsters would be mixed in real time to become complex when fighting. This approach to creating monsters is kind of ingenious because it allows them to create almost a plug-and-play system when introducing new mobs. All they really have to do is balance one mob when they knew every other mob is already balanced, and it's easier for them to implement them into the game. He continues to say, part of what takes time when we develop a monster is tuning them properly to create animations that they can recognize and react to. Again, this is them balancing the singular monster. He goes on to say that he is thinking of creating a new boss that inhabits the Goblin Caves, but these things take time as everything was created by a single game designer. That's insane. Number 6, will quests and the talent tree be added to the game in early access, aka what we have currently? STF confirms that those are their top priorities on the content side. I'm extremely excited about the talent tree as well. I think that's going to take the few classes that we have now and potentially give us a multitude of side classes that can branch out through the talent tree edition. It's also really exciting to hear that the quests are in the potential near future rather than further off. Number 7, will we be getting more modifiers or enchantments at any point? STF says that he likes the mechanism and he really wants to implement more. However, discussions are active internally due to the concerns about balance. I really like that they are very focused on maintaining the balance of the entire game. That's so important. It's so important in the future of the game. Number 8, will we get drops unique to every boss so each boss has something to farm from them other than the named item global loot table? STF says that the current item drop table is in a very early stage, and that the direction he wants to go in the future is to have different items for each area and different items for each monster. So I'm thinking different loot tables for every monster type, which is amazing. And that they want players to get loot where they want to get it and actively trade for things they don't need or that they lack. He says it should look similar to what you'd find in a typical multiplayer RPG game. I really hope that they have plans for an auction house in the future, because honestly, I really dislike the trading hall, and I think that that may be one of the few things about this game for me right now that is just not it. I do understand that in early access, maybe they just had to throw something together to allow trading, and this was the easiest means. So I'm not complaining too much, but I really do hope we get to see an auction house in the future. And number 9, the final question, will there be any major reworks to current classes that are underperforming or are not performing as intended? STF confirms that they're going to change the balance of the classes very drastically after the end of the current leaderboards. He says, we know how difficult it is to balance in this kind of game. Therefore, in the future, all classes will repeat the rise and fall. Damage reduction and rogues are the next major adjustments. That means rogue nerf confirmed. Just kidding, but I would really like to see the rogues reworked. I think their stealth honestly needs a buff, and their starting daggers, they're so bad. I really hope they do something with those. I am also excited to see how this potentially changes the current meta. Right now it seems like any of the top teams are running a ranger, cleric, and fighter. With this team comp, it really is just so much easier to run through other teams. There are always exceptions to this, and by no means is like a one-stop solution to winning, but it does seem to make things easier, and them potentially changing the balance of all characters allows for new metas to rise, which is exciting. Overall, I really like the answers STF had. He took back what didn't need to be said to not reveal all of their cards, but confirmed so much for us already. The additions of quivers, more maps, complete balances, told us what the druids are going to be like. He gave us so much information for the future of this game, and at the pace that these guys release patches, I'm really excited to see where this game is in 6 months' time. If you guys are still here watching this video 14 minutes in, but imagine you probably liked it, so could you do me a favor and smack that little thumbs up for me and consider becoming a sub? I really appreciate you guys, and I'm going to try to get more videos like this out in the near future. Love you guys, I will see you in the next one.